Is Porto Alegre the safest and most beautiful city in Brazil? Well, yes and no. Let me explain. So Porto Alegre is a city in the south of Brazil, and it's the capital city of the state of Rio Grande do Sul, and it's located near a large lake called Guaíba. And the population of the city is about 1.3 million people, but if you look at Greater Porto Alegre, then it's got a population of over 4 million people. And it is a very beautiful city. I mean, it's not like Rio de Janeiro and Florianopolis near the coast with lots of beautiful beaches, but Porto Alegre is beautiful in many other ways. And one of the things that makes Porto Alegre very beautiful is the fact that it's a very green city. The city has lots of parks. One of my favorite ones is Parcão, or Parque Moinhos de Vento. This is located in a very affluent neighborhood called Moinhos de Vento. This park isn't very big, but it's very nice. It's got a lake, lots of playgrounds and football pitch and volleyball, beach tennis courts. So it's very popular with people doing lots of exercise and kids playing in the playgrounds. And another park very popular is Jardim Botânico de Porto Alegre. So this is the Botanic Gardens in Porto Alegre. It's 36 hectares of forest and nature. It's also got a museum there. It's got some small lakes full of turtles. So lots of people go there to enjoy the nature, to have picnics, to exercise. And also there's some concerts as well held there sometimes. And finally there's Parque Farroupilha, or Hidden Salm. This is quite a big park. It's quite near the city center. And it's one of the oldest parks in the city. So it's a very beautiful park. It's got a nice lake, lots of playgrounds, football pitch, and other sports activities as well. And then there's also a market held there as well called Brique de Hidden Salm, with lots of stalls selling arts and crafts. But it isn't just the parks that make the city green. You also have lots and lots of streets and roads lined with trees, which also makes the city very picturesque. And there's one road called Rua Gonçalves de Carvalho, which apparently has been voted the most beautiful road in the world because it's lined with tipuana trees, and these trees kind of create this green tunnel, which is very beautiful. Now, I'm not sure who voted for this road to be called the most beautiful road in the world, so I don't think it's official, but nevertheless, it's very nice. And then also the city has some really nice neighborhoods with nice bars and cafes and restaurants and shops. One of my favorite neighborhoods is Moinhos de Vento, which is quite an affluent area. So in this neighborhood you find lots of nice cafes, bars, restaurants, exclusive stores, and also nice hotels and shopping malls. And there's actually one road in particular called Padre Chagas, where people love to go to have lunch, have a coffee, and also in the evening as well to go to the bars. Another nice area is Bella Vista. So here there's a road called Carlos Gomes, which is full of large new office buildings. So you've got lots of businesses in this area. And also in this area you've got one of the biggest shopping malls in Porto Alegre called Iguatemi, which is a very popular shopping mall in the city. And the area surrounding the shopping mall is full of large, expensive apartment buildings. And it seems like every year more apartment buildings being built in this area. And then another area, which is very different to the first two that I mentioned, is Centro Histórico. So that's kind of the downtown city center. And one of the main attractions in this area is Mercado Público, so the public market. So this is a very old building, dates back to 1864, and it's got over 100 shops and restaurants, selling everything from decorations to food. So you've got cheese, wine. This store here is selling chimarrão, which is this erva mate, which Brazilians here in the south love to drink. So you can see all the containers here, they're opening up here as different types of erva mate. And then they drink it in these wooden cups, which you can see hanging here. And lots of fish and seafood as well, which is a bit crazy with the sellers shouting, and it is a bit stinky as well. So it's a really cool building, I really like it. And you've got lots of other historical buildings in the city centre. So you've got this one here, which is the building for the local council, and you've got this building here which is Farol de Santander, which has various art galleries, and then this building here which is Casa de Cultura Mario Quintana, which used to be a luxury hotel built in the 1930s, and now is a cultural centre and an art gallery. And then outside next to Mercado Público you've got this square where they hold lots of events. And last week when I was there filming, it was Porto Alegre's birthday, so Porto Alegre is 253 years old, and they held this big barbecue in the square. And yeah, Brazilians in the south, they'll find any excuse to have a barbecue. They just love it. And so the city council decided to have this free barbecue event to celebrate its birthday, and people could queue up here and get a free meal. And you got some big pieces of meat being cooked here as well. And you can see the queue here stretching all the way back there. And then the city centre also has lots of stores as well. And in general, the stores here are a bit simpler, more affordable compared to the other areas that I showed you earlier. As I was walking through here, there are lots of people with signs shouting, "Compro oro e cabelo." And I just did not understand that at all. I mean, I understand compro oro, that they buy gold. So I guess people can sell their jewelry and stuff to these people. But then they also compro cabelo, they buy hair. And I just did not understand at all. Why on earth are they buying hair? So I had to Google it, and yeah, so people can sell their hair to these guys, and apparently get like 200 reais to over 1,000 reais. That's a bit of $30 to about $200, and how much you get depends on the hair color, the condition of the hair, the length of the hair, and apparently the most valuable hair is blonde hair. And in terms of what they use it for, so they use it to make wigs. And yeah, for me, I'd never seen this before. Okay, so that's a historic city centre. And then finally, another nice area in Porto Alegre is Orla do Guaíba. So Porto Alegre is right next to this big lake called Guaíba. And recently the city invested in making the waterfront area next to Guaíba really nice. So now you've got nice paths for people to exercise next to the water. You can do lots of sports, football, beach tennis, volleyball, skateboarding. And there are also some nice restaurants there. You can also take boat trips there as well. So it's a very popular area with people doing lots of exercise. And also lots of people coming here in the evenings as well, because the sunset over Guaíba is very beautiful. So Porto Alegre definitely has some really nice areas. And also another positive about Porto Alegre is the fact that real estate is significantly cheaper in Porto Alegre compared to many other cities in Brazil. So if you look at this website here, which shows the cost of real estate in some of the big towns in Brazil. So here you've got Porto Alegre, and the cost per square meter of real estate in terms of buying a property is 6,277 reais, which is $1,090 per square meter. And if we compare it to some other cities, so you've got Florianopolis, which is 10,093 reais per square meter, which is $1,750 per square meter. So you can see Florianopolis is significantly more expensive. And we look at Rio de Janeiro, 9,200 reais, which is $1,600 per square meter. And Sao Paulo, which is very similar, 9,390 reais per square meters, which again is around $1,600. So you can see real estate is significantly cheaper in Porto Alegre compared to these cities. And if we just look at a few examples, so I mean, you can find 2-bedroom apartments ranging from 300,000 reais to 500,000 reais in nicer areas. And obviously, if you want to live in a really big apartment in the really expensive areas, then you're looking at over 1 million reais. And you'll definitely struggle to find these prices for apartments in Florianopolis or Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro, that's for sure. So yeah, Porto Alegre has some really nice areas, and also real estate is cheaper compared to many other cities. However, the city does have its problems. And one of the problems it has, like many cities in Brazil, it has a fair bit of poverty. So about 11% of the population of Porto Alegre lives in poverty, which is about 150,000 people. And just to compare that, so Florianopolis, which is the capital city of Santa Catarina, which is north of Porto Alegre, so it has about 5% of its population in poverty, which is about 19,000 people. So yeah, the number of people in poverty in Porto Alegre is relatively high. So you can see that when you walk around Porto Alegre, especially in the city centre. And also Porto Alegre has some big favelas as well. I mean, it's nothing compared to Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, but still they are relatively big. So some of the big ones are Cruzeiro do Sul, Chácara de Fumaça, Mato Sampaio, and many others. So yeah, you have many people struggling financially in Porto Alegre. And one of the reasons for this is that over the last 10 years or so, Porto Alegre has had many economic problems. So back in 2014-15, Brazil as a whole was having economic problems. The president was impeached, and there was this big corruption scandal as well in the government. And this had a very negative impact on the economy. And the result was that in Rio Grande do Sul, the state had problems to pay its state workers, pay its suppliers, which caused many economic problems. And then you had a pandemic as well, which affected the city a lot. And also finally, last year there was a big flood in the state. And large parts of Porto Alegre were underwater, and the floods affected over 2 million people. And so the city centre of Porto Alegre, that was underwater, so Mercado Público and many buildings there were flooded. And so yeah, all of these events had a negative impact on the city, and as a result created a lot of poverty as well. And one of the consequences of the economic problems and poverty is that crime in the city is relatively high. If you look at Numbeo, they give Porto Alegre a score of 70 in terms of crime, and if we compare that to Florianopolis, the score is 46. Now these numbers don't reflect actual crimes, it's just people's perceptions, but you can just see there that the big difference between Florianopolis and Porto Alegre. And then if we look at homicides, for example, in 2022, Porto Alegre had homicides of about 30 per 100,000 population, and then compare that to Florianopolis, it was 10 per 100,000. So a few years ago, Porto Alegre was classified as one of the most dangerous cities in the south of Brazil. However, recently the city council has been able to reduce crime a fair bit. So they've invested a lot in policing, also the federal government has provided support. As a result, crime has reduced a lot, including homicides. And in 2024, the homicide rate was down to 5 per 100,000 compared to 30 per 100,000 back in 2022. But these numbers aren't for the full year, so it's not a like-for-like comparison, but it's definitely a good sign. And then finally, another issue is pollution. So the city suffers a fair bit from water pollution. So not all the sewage that the city produces is treated. So apparently the number is 57% is treated, while the rest of the sewage just flows out into the rivers and the lake without being treated. So the result is that a lot of the rivers are very polluted, and also Guaíba as well is polluted. So earlier I showed you the nice waterfront area where people like to do exercise. Well, the water there is polluted, and you can definitely not go swimming there, that's for sure. So yeah, Porto Alegre has its problems, but it's not unique to Porto Alegre. Many cities here in Brazil have similar issues, and I personally think it's a really beautiful and vibrant city, and I always enjoy my time when I come to Porto Alegre. But in terms of living there, I mean, I personally prefer smaller cities and towns, which definitely have a lot less crime and are a lot safer. So someone who likes the hustle and bustle of a relatively big city, but you don't want to pay the super high prices for rent that you do in Sao Paulo and Florianopolis, then maybe Porto Alegre is a good option. So I hope you like this video. Please leave a like, subscribe. If you've got any questions or anything, leave it in the commentary below. So thanks for watching. Until next time.